Variety. Here we got, this has been cooking up over the week. We talked a little bit about this, but right now, unless somebody else comes in and offers a better deal in the next 45 days, it looks like David Ellison is set to be the chairman and CEO. Jeff Snell is president of Paramount, and Sherry Redstone is bye-bye baby.
Yeah.
So, Andre, want to take us through the ins and outs
Wow.
of this real quick
Yeah,
before we
sure.
lose
I'll
anybody
go
else?
through the details here, but first, I know that culture is very pressed for time. So before you have
Yeah, I
to
wanted to
bow
get
out,
there involved. Yeah.
your take on this,
Okay,
and then we'll go through the details.
my immediate reaction to this is still the best thing that could happen to the company. Despite Tom's objections early on, I thought Skydance was the best player because it doesn't eliminate another competitor in the grand scheme of things. It only kind of, accelerates them in one way or another. I have a feeling that, Nepo baby, he's a pretty bright guy, but I have a feeling that his success and his focus will help out a company that's been just floundering since it was reassembled into one giant entity, which was a huge mistake. They should have kept both things separate. But at the same time, you're also getting rid of Shari Redstone and essentially National Amusements at this point. Also, another major move. This allows Skydance to basically do anything they want. It gives them a giant network. It maybe they'll bring back the idea of competition for the grid, for the schedule, for Paul when it comes to the television side of things. But I think this is probably the best move. It also will prevent some anti-competitive measures that all of these studios were trying to put together, these joint ventures and things like that essentially are going to be trusted as anti-trusted every single time they come around. They'll be always under scrutiny. This is a win for both sides of the equation, including the viewers. And I think we'll see that at a discount price of $8 billion, this is a win. And look, the stock was only going to go down more, and the company was going to be broken up. This prevents all of that from happening.
$8 billion is what David Ellison's dad finds in the couch.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
For those who don't know,
Before we go
change.
on with the details here, I just to say that an $8 billion deal, this is an absolute steal.
Yes.
Because only a couple of years ago, the
Tell me
two
about
companies you had, Viacom and CBS, they were both valued at around like 12, 13 billion each.
Yep.
And they were merged together with the hopes that they would more than double what they were worth individually. Instead, they collapsed to the point where the two companies combined were worth less than one company before, and now it's down to 8 billion. So basically, we are talking about like a 60% reduction in value here. So if you just roll back, just go back 5 years, for 8 billion, he got the exact same properties, the exact same franchises, the exact same package of networks and everything like that would have cost together almost 30 billion, and he got it for 8 billion.
Well, and notwithstanding what Sherry actually wanted, I mean, it was clear that the waiting game was to drive the price down to something that Sherry would finally accept and overcome her ego.
Yeah. Well, remember, we said this the last time we spoke about this, because this is a deal that has been in the works for more than 6 months already, since late 2023. And last we spoke about this, little more than a week ago, that's when they decided that we're going to cool it down a little while. It's over for right now, but we'll meet again. And in the next 12 or so months, then Paramount is still open, or Chato can still accept better offers from anyone else. And I said then, no one else is going to come along. This is just them biding their time. And Ellison saying, yeah, you better take this deal right now, because I'm not going to offer this again later when no one else comes that can offer anything similar. And that's indeed what happened. And Shari basically said, well, screw this. Let's just end this. Culture, do you have time to be here as we go through some more details of the deal, or do you have to bow out?
I'll stick around a bit longer.
Okay.
This is incredibly interesting. I feel like this is one of those big moments that we should be paying very close attention.
It is indeed. I'm going to read from one of the main stories here. The company had received approval earlier Sunday from a special committee of Paramount's board of directors. The full board then okayed the plan for, here's the important, two-step transaction. First, the acquisition of National Amusements, Inc., the entity ran by Shari Redstone that had controlled almost 80% of Paramount voting shares. I'll get back to why that matters. That transaction will be followed by a full merger. So that's the two-pronged process. One, it's acquire National Amusements, and then the full merger kind of goes automatically after that. Because here's the important thing. When you look at Paramount, who owns Paramount right now? The majority owner is National Amusements. And this is why this transaction is so clean, because rather than going and acquiring Paramount directly or acquiring parts of it, what they're doing here is that they're just acquiring the company that owns Paramount, and then they kind of like get Paramount as part of the deal, which if you want to do this, this is the cleanest way to do it, because this way the only thing that really happens, as the Culture said before, now it's no longer a case of another movie production studio like Sony or Warner taking over Paramount the same way that Disney did with Fox, and then basically just took them over to shut them down. Now it's just a new corporate owner. This has happened before because Paramount has had many corporate different owners over the years. This is just a new one on the list. So in this sense, I see where you're coming from, Culture, because this way Paramount will be able to stay in ownership or operate as a studio. Only difference is that now it will be owned by Skydance instead of being owned by National Amusements, the same way that at one point in time it was owned by, list the name of companies that own them. Gulf Western, for instance.
I'm just glad that they agreed to release all the hostages.
Yeah. Script, you were saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is going to be the easiest deal with regards to regulation wise. However, I'm personally of the mind that never trust a human being that doesn't have eyebrows, because you can't really rate their expression. But the other part too is, okay, so what is Skydance going to do when they get a hold of Paramount? Because traditionally speaking, they like to clean house when new owners come in. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the case here, because if it is, there's a lot of targets in that company that need to be bullseyed out.
You mentioned that. That's actually something I was before we started the show. I was talking about that very matter with Andre. And look, this is a clean way to get rid of a lot of bad apples, because you're being acquired by another entity. You're going to have redundancies. You call somebody a redundancy and show them the door. And I think there's some people, Script, that I think we would like to see the door shown to.
And I agree with you also, Culture, that it is a better situation if we have it still standing as its own studio and not another entity under Sony or another part of Warner Brothers or what have you. That I totally agree with. My problem with the situation is, and I will stand by it, this company is a big part of the problem of why Paramount is in the position they are in. And to me, this is just trading one problem off for another. Now, I hope of hopes that things do change and you guys are right, but I have zero faith in Ellison, because a lot of the stuff that came out of Paramount in the last 20 years has been Skydance produced. And unless it was a Mission Impossible or a Top Gun, you're hard pressed to find a hit in there. Even the Transformer films fell off a cliff. So I'm just really not sure if this is going to be more of the same in the next 10 years. And they're just going to continue down this trajectory of destroying more franchises or what? Because these are the same people that mucked up Star Trek. Lord knows what they're going to do with TMNT. Just probably going to keep letting Seth run that into the ground. But anyway, That being said, that's my biggest fear here at this point. That's my only real concern. Otherwise, I'm glad to see that it's a separate non-studio entity or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, let us go through that a little bit one by one, because we have many stories coming out. I have a couple of them prepared here because, of course, news are coming in hot and strong. And I think we all have a fairly good deal what's going to play out here. First and foremost, just because they have announced the intention of doing this, there's still a lot of approvals that have to be met first. You have to get government approval, and all kinds of government bodies have to approve of this before this go through. So the timeline here is that in about 1 year, Q3 of 2025, that is when they expect this deal to be done. And that is when management changes is going to come. And I already read stories about employees starting to worry for their future, and they have every reason to worry, but not just yet. Because Paramount Global co-CEOs tell staff it's business as usual until Skydance deal closes, which is a little more than a year from now, probably. So they have that time to brush up on their resumes, because it has been signaled that there's going to be changes and there's going to be firings. Like, no one has said that there will be firings, but that is kind of implied. And what David Ellison has signaled, this is another story coming up here now momentarily. The intention here, Ellison has said, is that Skydance will help Paramount double down on core competency and embrace technology. So David Ellison, he obviously has plans for what he wants to do, and that is to double down on everything that is already working well. And when you look at the different brands and that they have in their portfolio, either under direct ownership or in some kind of long-term deal, there is a lot to work with there. As I've said before, much of it hasn't worked because of poor brand management. So here's to hoping that they will be able to do something about that and maybe even fix their own past mistakes. Will they do that? We don't know. That is too early to say. But what we do know is that Shari Redstone, after having completed the merger, that's when she dropped the ball by letting the same people who had been there for years and who obviously weren't up to the task continue to destroy the studio. So hopefully there's going to be new people that will understand what kind of properties they have and bring out the best in them. And then time will tell. But I agree with Tom's worry. When you, for instance, look at Star Trek, I think that for Star Trek in particular, this is very bad news, because the people that Skydance has a relationship with are all of the people that have ruined Star Trek. That's going to be their go-to people, and that's my big fear there. It's like, hey, we've worked on this before. How do you suggest we fix this thing that we broke between us? So on Star Trek in particular, I'm not optimistic.
Well,
For everything else, who knows?
but the problem is that they've got the J.J. Abrams version of Star Trek in their brain.
Exactly, that's what I mean, because that's where they have the relationship.
Yeah, so their version of fixing it would be, oh, how do we make that
How do we go back
version,
to 2009?
which is wrong. They need to go back to 1967 is what they really need to go back to.
Or even the 90s. Go back to the Rick Berman era and look at Rick Berman. He got a lot of crap, but he was a TV producer and he was able to manage something that was so successful that there was an organic need for 5 series and a theatrical franchise at the same time. And it all worked. It was all profitable until basically Les Moonves came in and fucked it all up. Now,
he
how
didn't
do
like
we
Star
go
Trek.
in and fix all this? How do we go back to that? That's what they need to do. Will they be able to do that? Will David Ellison to see that shit, the people that I worked on with Star Trek before, they were all the wrong people? Or will he just see, Star Trek, J.J. Abrams, he knows Star Trek. I'm going to give it to him.
Right. That's
This
the fear.
is a concern. This is a legit concern. This is what Tom was alluding to too. But for everything else, it's going to be exciting to see. Like, for instance, Beavis and Butthead, King of the Hill, is probably going to figure out that, hey, Mike Judgy has a good handle on that. So let's keep in.
Well, based on Skydance past, I don't think they would accept the fact that Star Trek was an intellectual property for a much smaller audience than Star Wars. I think part of the problem was they thought Star Trek should always be as big as Star Wars, and they can't think that way. Star Trek
absolutely.
Star Trek
Absolutely.
was science fiction and had interesting ideas.
They fired the person who told them that.
Right.
This is a problem. They had someone who could tell them, and they got rid of him.
Yeah,
they got rid of Orsi.
Her, actually, I was talking about Emma, whatever her name was, but yeah,
her too. But before then, Robert Orsi, he was the one who understood Star Trek better, and they got rid of him and gave it to Kurtzman.
You got to take the dollar signs out of your eyes when you think of Star Trek. It can still be popular. It can still make money. It's got a fantastic loyal fan base. If you do right by them, they'll return.
Yeah. Well, actually, you do got to keep the dollar sign. You just have to adjust the size of them.
No, yes. No, everything has to make money. Well, yes. The irony is that by trying to go for the big enchilada, you get nothing.
Exactly. Here you have to see that, okay, Star Trek, this is what he needs to realize, that, okay, not all of these things can be Star Wars. We just want to get to where they're maximized for what they can be. So, for instance, for something like Beavis and Butthead, we don't want it to make 100 million every year. If this thing can net us 10 million on the bottom line, that's a good deal. That's what we're going to aim for, and we're going to budget to do that. With Star Trek, that we want to net us 100 million a year, but we know it can't net us $1 billion a year. So let's budget and set it for this is going to net us 100 million a year. And that's what they need to do with every single property. Just go and see what is realistic for this particular property, and then let's optimize it to reach that goal and do whatever is needed so that the built-in fans will shell over their cash to get that to this realistic goal for the franchise.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking everything is going to be Star Wars, because that's when they get nothing.
Well, and swinging for the fences is something that's going to be very difficult for this pack of egos to not do.
Yeah. Script. You are, like, from industry point of view. What do you feel about this?
And a Star Trek expert too.
That too. He obviously had to bow out. So cultured. Meanwhile, whilst the Script is doing whatever he had to do, after seeing the most recent headlines here and what he's planning on doing, are you optimistic? Can they do this? What do you think that we can expect?
Well, I mean, I think you're going to have a little more perspective in the approach to leadership here. I don't think they're going to try to swing for the fences. I think they will definitely do, as they state here in the headline, embrace technology. I think they're going to try to adopt AI in a way that maybe doesn't lose a bunch of jobs for writers, but does, approach the evaluation of whether or not something's going to be successful a little more thoughtfully. I think that's one of the ways AI can be used in entertainment, is to evaluate an audience response to a given property and assign, a certain number of factors to the successful and the failure driven products, and be able to then evaluate it. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Script.
No, you're on the right track. AI could be used for that. The biggest problem with AI is that there's a lot of harmless and avoidance and screening out done of the data. So if you complain about the show and you use any sort of derogatory terms or imply anything that's kind of can be considered hateful by the standards of the people programming the AI, that data is going to be thrown away, which means that you can skewer the data and you're going to end up in the exact same position that you are in with the current social media data collection that's going on right now, which is that, these are just a bunch of small, very loud trolls with sock puppet accounts that hate this thing. We don't want to pay attention to them. We're looking for the real audience. And so you kind of just, you select the data that is to your preference, as opposed to taking the objective one. And AI is very easy to manipulate, especially with their safety guidelines that they put in place, which is going to be in every single AI. And if you want to try and get an AI that doesn't have that, good luck, because it's not happening every single programmer is terrified of not having a safety protocol within their AI.
Or a safe word. Mine's Belgium, by the way. Belgium waffles. Just in case you want to know what my safe word is.
I don't have one. Safe words are for wimps.
Yeah.
Who needs a safe space?
Who needs it? Who needs a safe space?
Yeah. Especially where safe words are needed, you definitely don't need a safe space. But yeah.
Well, the idea that any of our favorite pop culture properties is going to be resurrected by a sudden rush of smart people, I think is not going to happen.
Not with the current climate in the industry right now. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just going to say no, but it saddens me when we see an opportunity like this where somebody could come in and clean house. And Paramount isn't necessarily a place that's as bogged down as Disney, obviously, or some of the other companies in their bullshit, where a lot of their problems are just incompetence. Right? Like, that's the thing. It's like they're just stupid. It's not like they're going out of their way to make shit woke so much as they're just dumb. And
yeah, they're dumb. They're very smart in certain aspects of what they can do to get them positioned, but they're really ignorant when it comes to the broader scope of things. The projects that they're attached to, they're not the right fit for it. They have to be going. They're not placed where they should be, essentially.
Well, let me give you an example, okay? Like, what I mean by that, and I'm not trying to be so derogatory or whatever you want to call it towards these folks, but like, we're smart enough to look at something like the Transformer franchise, right? Now, they see it as Bumblebee underperformed. And then the next film had a bit of a bump in its box office. Well, so they decided they're going to go with the Michael Bay route again. Well, as Andre and I would be the first to tell you, be like, well, the only reason that one after Bumblebee got a bump was because of Bumblebee. If you look at the trajectory before Bumblebee, and that's why Bumblebee suffered, is because it was headed down a cliff. Because people were sick and tired of getting the same damn movie over and over and over and over again. Why would they keep dragging their kids to these movies when all they got to do is throw in the last one and their kids shouldn't know the difference because they're literally the same movie? You know, like, at that point. So, I mean, instead of paying attention to trends and noticing what people are saying and actually writing the ship, and Star Trek's another great example. They keep saying they're trying to fix things, but it's like they keep asking the people who broke the windows in the first place to fix the windows.
I'm tired of this talk of transgender. I'm just
right. Well, that's the only thing that's really bogged down in, like, as far as Paramount goes, in like a lot of their bullshit wokeness, is Star Trek for some reason. And that happened early on. And I think that has more of Kurtzman's influence and other people behind the scenes influence. Sure. So, like, I mean, honestly, I don't think Paramount gives as much of a shit about that, because that's the thing we've learned. And that's where I said before, like, that Emma What's-Her-Face got fired, or they got rid of her, or whatever they did, because she come out and she flat out said, Star Trek is not Star Wars. We need to quit making them like they're Star Wars movies. We can't spend $100-200 million on one of these productions, or X amount on one of the series, when they don't make any more money than they did back in the day when this franchise was at its height. And if you go and you look with inflation, she is 100% correct. None of JJ's films made any more money than any of the other Star Trek films did.
They brought in the same amount of money, but they didn't make any at all. That's the thing. Like,
that's the other side of it. Yeah.
The danger right now with this discussion is thinking that Star Trek is going to be the savior of Paramount.
No. I'm just using it as an example. Paul.
No.
Like, that's my point, is that's how incompetent they are behind the scenes.
My hope is that Skydance, which has been kind of like a canon kind of equivalent in many ways, their films are not very diverse compared. I don't mean diverse in the modern vernacular, but Miramax just had everything from Tarantino to, British stuff. I mean, they really had a diverse catalog, or have a diverse catalog of films. Here's hoping that David Ellison, now in charge of a real studio with a real history, reimagines himself as Alan Ladd Jr. with a responsibility that's bigger than just what Skydance has been doing. I mean, that's my hope. My hope is that he is infused with the history of Paramount.
This is also the guy who destroyed Terminator.
Yeah,
Twice.
yeah,
Twice.
that's
Let's
true.
not forget it. This is the guy behind first Terminator Sega Genesis, after which the rights reverted to James Cameron, and then James Cameron instantly licensed it back to him, who then proceeded to make Terminator Woke Fate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bring
Well,
that up
maybe I'm
because,
wrong.
well, that's what I'm saying, and that's why I bring it up is because that's the
wait,
thing is
who made Terminator gynecologist?
Skydance.
yeah, Skydance.
Remember, it's
It's your-
well, here's the other part you have to worry about. A guy like Ellison, he follows the trends, right?
Well, that's what I was going
Oh.
to say. Is you're right in kind of comparing them to canon. Is like they don't really deviate much from what they do, right? Like they don't have a bunch of different kind of Skydance divisions making dramas and comedies and all that kind of shit. They basically make your straightforward $100 million action pictures. That's mostly what they do, or $200 million now. But yeah, your Top Guns, your Transformers, your Mission Impossibles. That's the kind of shit they produce.
I'm still optimistic. You got a smart guy doing good things.
I hope you're
Yeah,
right, Culture. I mean, this is
other-
a studio
other-
that deserves a turnaround.
Yeah, but other aspects of their business they seem to understand is animation. They went out and hired the best people and then stopped doing anything and letting them do whatever they do. So I feel like I think you're going to see some good things.
Yeah, I hope so. I really, really hope so, because I want to see Paramount do good, and they have such a gold mine of properties, and I just hope that they are really able to do what is absolute best for those properties, hire the best people. Here's the thing, David Ellison, he doesn't personally need to understand all of these properties. He only needs to understand what he doesn't know and what he doesn't understand, so that he is able to hire the best person that does to run it for him. Like, for instance, Transformers. That is something that has been ran into the ground, but I believe that in the right hands, that can be a huge property. Again, billion-dollar movie every time. Same with the G.I. Joe. You just need the right people to do it.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There, you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe, and join us.